Change is a part of life, and all of us are currently going through it or will have to go through it eventually. It will be hard, we may feel hostile or angry or weepy and hysterical, or we may feel depressed. But in this video, I want to talk about why it's hard and how you're going to be able to get through it. Get through change now, and any other time you have to embrace change in the future. The most reliable way to change your life is not by changing your entire life. If you try to change everything all at once, you will quickly find yourself pulled back into the same patterns as before. But if you merely focus on changing one specific habit and work on it until it becomes part of your normal day, you'll find your life changes naturally as a side effect. Improve the whole by mastering one thing. Source, Cosmos, Possible Words. There are usually one or two things that are really hurting you. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to get healthy, but you don't want to eat like it. Maybe you want to get a house, but you can't stop spending. Maybe you want to improve your relationship, but you don't want to work on communication. Now, really, I'm making this video to help myself. On one hand, I love change. I love diving into the unknown. I don't really have a fear of jumping off the deep end and doing stuff. I really like getting into uncomfortable places and trying to grow and work under pressure and stress. However, I do have areas that I struggle with. One of them is my time, and I think really it stems from money, providing for myself, and having a fiance now, providing for her as well. And so I tend to put a lot on my plate, which can be really selfish in terms of my time and what I need to dedicate to my fiance, especially going forward. And so that's something I've been trying to work on and change, but why is change so hard? So I'm going to be looking to kind of figure that out and answer why it's so hard. But first we need to kind of dig into the brain a little bit. So I recently picked up a book, Winning the War in Your Mind, from Craig Rochelle. Now this won't be a huge in-depth look at this book, but it has been helping me and really inspired this video. In chapter 4, he talked about the ruts. When the road gets muddy and you're driving on them, a long rut forms. He mentions how this is particularly bad in Alaska, where there is a sign that reads, "Choose your rut carefully, you'll be in it for the next 60 miles. When your tires are deep in a rut, you don't even have to worry about steering. You'll be stuck in one direction until the rut ends." So this is kind of how our brain works with ruts. Our thoughts produce neurochemical changes that create neural pathways. And so remember how in another video I mentioned how I love science? Yeah, this stuff gets pretty crazy. Now, a neural pathway is a rut, if you will. The more you think a thought, the more it starts to set in, the more it becomes a basic habit. Maybe you went off to college and felt very lonely there. You had no friends yet and felt like you didn't fit in. What you did have was your parents' credit card. So you drove to the mall and bought some new clothes. Having something new and nice, imagining how you'd look in it, led your brain to release some dopamine. That natural high was the first time you felt good in weeks. Your brain responded, "That felt good. Do it again," and you did. A few weeks later, you received a bad grade. You went to the mall and bought something. Then you went through a painful breakup. You went to the mall and bought something. So what happened to you? So your brain created a neural pathway. That rut you created runs back and forth from the house to the mall. When you're disappointed, you feel like you're not enough. When you're angry, you buy something you cannot afford. And now it's on the credit card, which compounds the problem. When you start to do something for so long, it becomes a neural pathway. I think another visual way of explaining this is actually the pathway. If you're a dog owner, you'll know that they leave a pathway in your backyard. They tend to go from one spot to another over and over again, and you can see that path being dug in. Now, there are all kinds of neural pathways that you can give yourself. Now, these are not always bad. There's a lot of good neural pathways, things like breathing, automated stuff that your body does without thinking. Maybe you're way home. You know exactly how to get there in the back of your hand. You probably sometimes don't even remember getting there. You just remember ending up at home. That's a neural pathway. Your brain's figured out how to efficiently do something and do it over and over again. But I want to leave this here. If you want to change your life, you have to change your way of thinking. Now, this is the really difficult part. People don't want to change the way they're thinking. Opinions, everyone has opinions. Everyone's used to something. Getting out of your comfort zone isn't always the easiest. Now, somewhere along the line, you're going to have to change your way of thinking. And if you try to stay in the same way of thinking, you're never going to grow and change. You're going to stay the same. Someone might think, well, why would I want to change? Now, change is good. So you can lead to a better version of yourself. Granted, none of us will ever be perfect, but we always strive to be better. Life always is going to have change. A big change for me is that I'm getting married, and that's going to be a very drastic change. So there's a lot that comes with that. So let's go back to the food example. What you put into you matters. Obviously, if you're going to the gym and your goal is to get healthy, sure, exercising may be a big part of that, but what you eat and put into you is also going to have an even bigger effect. That'll dictate whether you get stronger or you're leaning out correctly, or you have the energy or not to either perform movements or throughout the day. So now let's apply that to our brain, actually. What we put into our minds comes out in our lives. It's crazy how we give it little attention. Think about it. People who have high performance cars put in high performance gasoline. One reason to be extra attentive about these decisions is because we constantly have thoughts that we did not choose. Studies reveal that we are bombarded by about 500 unintentional and intrusive thoughts a day. Each unwanted thought lasts about 14 seconds. Do the math. That's almost 2 hours a day of thoughts we do not want to think. 2 hours of thought missiles like you aren't good enough, you deserve better, you'll always struggle with your weight, if they knew you, they wouldn't like you, you'll always be alone. If we don't do something, those thoughts will poison our thinking. Now for me, I always tend to overload my plate, so I tend to say yes a lot. And it might stem from a fear of I'm not going to have enough, or I don't know when the next project or something's going to come in. I always need to provide for myself and now someone else. So there's a study about the law of exposure from psychologists. So our mind absorbs and reflects what we expose it to the most. So it's pretty much a way of saying if you allow a thought into your life, it's going to come true. Now initially it might sound a little gimmicky and wooey, but really think about it. Think about who you hang around with. Think about the things you watch, what you listen to, what you're reading, what you're putting inside you on social media. If you keep surrounding yourself with things that are not going to be helping you change or get to that new state you want to be in, it's going to start to get really negative. Okay, so now we got a little bit of a background on how our mind works and what we're doing, how these thoughts are coming to us. We want to figure out how to get our new thoughts and new habits to stick. Making a new trench is hard work, but there are a few ways to make this easier. So in the book, Winning the War in Your Mind, he talks about something called declarations. Now, in here, it's finding a truth, a new thought to constantly tell yourself. First way that I want to mention about getting a new thought or habit to stick is by meditating. And so constantly reminding yourself of this new thought. Craig brings up the power of repetition. This is drilling in a new thought until you believe that new thought. He also invented a new word for this. This word is automaticity. This is the ability to do things without thinking about them. This is when repetition allows actions to become unconscious. In other words, automatic. But automaticity is also why you keep doing things that you don't want to do. Repetition has led negative and harmful things to also become automatic. Think of practicing in music or sports, or really anything for that matter. First time you're running a drill or a new technique, it starts out unnatural. Over time, the more and more you practice it, the more and more normal it feels, until eventually you don't have to think about it anymore. It becomes easy to you. In fact, this actually happened to me at work the other day. I was training something new and I did a command on the keyboard to explode an item. And I've been doing this command so much that I actually forgot what the command was. She had stopped and asked, and I had to take a step back, do it again, and really pay attention to what I was doing. At this point, it was just muscle memory. So this is what he means by automaticity. So here we want to start by writing our new declaration down, and as early as possible. You want to think and tell yourself this new thought as much as you can. The reason why we do this thing as early as possible or first thing in the morning is because this thought will have a domino effect throughout the rest of the day. So the goal here is to have this thought replace the old thoughts that start happening throughout the day. This book is written by Craig Rochelle, who's a pastor. So this is written from a Christian point of view. And so he has a declaration that actually resonates with me based on what I've been struggling with as well. So the declaration is, money is not and never will be a problem for me. My God is an abundant provider who meets my every need. So because I'm blessed, I will always be a blessing. I will lead the way with irrational generosity because I know it is truly blessed to give rather than receive. And so thankfully I can borrow his declaration and use that in my own life too. Be able to give more, be more helpful to others, be more just generous than I used to be. And over time, I've started doing that really this past year, and I've seen it really reflect back on me. I've been able to help others in ways that I used to not be able to. I've actually financially been in a better place as well. I've been able to give more and be less stressed doing so. Now, there's a ton of examples in this book, and I won't get into all of them, but it's a pretty great read if you want to pick it up. Now the next one is actually your environment. So good luck controlling yourself. You need to control your environment, not yourself. I have a pretty bad sweet tooth actually, and it kind of runs in the family. And my mom, my aunt, my uncle, all of us, we have really big sweet tooths. Now I know having a sweet now and then isn't going to affect me or be an issue, but I know if I keep sweets around me, I'm going to tear into them pretty quickly.
No.
Even though I know I shouldn't, my willpower is not going to be able to overcome those donuts that are going to be sitting there. So think about it in your scenario now. What do you need to change in your environment? Is it people you're hanging around with? That's actually a big one, and a lot of times it's really hard to give up friends, but at least maybe don't hang out with them for a certain amount of time if they're getting you back in other habits. Maybe it could be eating, could be going out, spending, just other things. People do play a big part in what you do. So maybe it's the food you have in your house, maybe it's the places you go. There's all kinds of things in your environment that you can control and change in order to help you change. Lastly, having accountability. Now this is a big one. It's usually always really hard to do something alone, but if you can have some friends, family, your significant other, wife, be there to be accountable, that can really help a lot. It means you're not going through it alone, and you can have somewhere to turn if you ever need any help. So I have one example, a small example of accountability for myself. I go to the gym almost every morning. Sometimes I'll go by myself, and I know it's usually pretty tough too, but I have two friends that I normally go with in the morning, and we have like a group text, and we'll call each other early in the morning, and it helps knowing that someone else is going to go too, and I don't want to leave them hanging. And if we're calling each other, then we know we got to get up. But I know also if I don't go in the morning, I'm not going to go at all. So if I didn't have that accountability, it'd be much easier for me to sleep in. So this has worked pretty well because of that accountability, I've gotten used to one, going to bed earlier, and also waking up earlier. So getting up in the morning has been a lot easier, and getting to the gym. So that's an example of now a new rut or a new habit being formed. So if you remember me earlier mentioning about I have issues either saying yes or overloading my plate a lot. Well, my accountability is my fiance. So a lot of times I do go ahead and talk to her before saying yes to something, either scheduling something in, talk to her, what do we have to do, and getting better about that as well. There's a few ways navigating through change, and ways that have helped me, and also have a proven track record of helping others get through an uncomfortable situation as well. Now remember, none of this is going to happen overnight. Change isn't easy. It's tough. You're going to face challenges, temptations, all kinds of things in order to go back into your old habits. But life is going to be full of change, and so if you understand it, you'll be able to better navigate it and enjoy that process a little bit more. Let me know if you end up picking up the book, and if you read it or if you have read it, and what's helped you with it. Hopefully some of this stuff helps you get through maybe a tough situation you're having, or in the future, just better prepare you for change, because it's going to happen to all of us. Thank you for watching, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Standard now. You're tearing it in the cinnamon roll. Is that one good? Can I have a bite? I want this guy. Take it.
What is it? I don't know.